There's insanity in the control room.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
It's like a Sharknado, except with poop.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a show for y'all. So first, I want to thank everybody for joining me today, for tuning in. I know there's a lot of different other choices that are going on right now, a lot of very popular channels. So I'm really, really glad that you are joining me here today. So I really, really appreciate it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already as well. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go through a quick announcement for what's going on tomorrow, because there's something going on tomorrow. We're going to get through that. Then I'm going to talk about the stories. We're going to do the breakdown, and then we'll dive into it. So just to let everybody know, I will not be here tomorrow. I get my second Fauci ouchie. I get my second Pfizer shot tomorrow, and then I've got meetings, and so I will not be here. Hopefully there will be something exciting coming out of that meeting that I will be able to share with you, at least for those of you on Facebook. Very important news that we will be doing. To everyone else, I guess, business as usual, trying to grow here on Twitch and on YouTube, of course, as always. And so just got home from getting my second Pfizer shot. Congratulations, John's Venn diagram of desire. I'm going to do that tomorrow, so it should be a lot of fun. Yay! I actually hate needles. I hate them. I am not a fan of getting shots, getting needles. I already had the first one, and let me tell you what. No worries. Like, seriously, though. Barely a pinch. Get your vaccine. I know some of you might be vaccine hesitant. I understand completely, 100%. But please do it. It's really not that bad. Even if you hate needles, it's really not that bad. As far as the side effects are going, that's why part of why I'm not going to be here on Friday, because I'm not entirely sure what side effects I'm going to have. But, you know, nonetheless, I also do have a meeting on about Facebook. Exciting new opportunities, so it's all good stuff. That said, with that an announcement out of the way, reaction to the second shot would be the next day. Felt tired and chill, so drink a lot of water. Good advice. My wife got one. She had gotten the same Pfizer shot that I have, that I will be getting the second one. And her reaction was really, really mild. And so, you know, hers was mild, but then again, my stepfather-in-law, his reaction was a little bit more crappy. So did not feel Did not feel so good after the second one, but all of it is still a lot better than getting COVID. And the thing about me is I actually have a pretty good immune system. I don't get like massively sick. The times that I take out when I don't feel well is usually as a result of GI issues. And I think I've talked about that before. But like, as far as like getting the flu, getting, sick like that, rarely ever. But when I do, it hits me hard. And so I'm kind of curious, like, since I do have, a very powerful immune system, if this second shot is going to slam me. So that's going to be a problem. I am kind of like, oof about that one. My first shot, I really wasn't all that sore. A very, very tiny amount of soreness in this arm. Other than that, totally fine. Some people have had reactions in the first COVID shot. So, I mean, we're just going to see what happens. Maybe that's something to talk about on Monday. So, everyone reacts differently. Did both Moderna, second one as well. See, true. Everybody absolutely is different. Get your vaccination and feel lousy for a few hours versus getting COVID and dying. Also true. Hey, Granny Dragon, mod over on Twitch, says the J&J had no blood clots so far. They're very incredibly rare. And so I don't think it's too much to worry about as far as that goes. Again, the numbers on that, incredibly rare. I think I'm going to switch up the background colors for a minute. There we go. All right. So, that said, I have a pretty tough immune system. My second shot was just one evening of soreness, small fever, and a headache. Then I slept up. Hey. So, yeah, it could go either way. All right. Anyway, let's do the breakdown. We've got news. We got news to get to. We've got a Texas Republican that's essentially admitting what we've already known all along about the Republican Party, but he's going to put it in his own words. I have an interesting reaction to that. I'm sure you will be. You will have a similar reaction. Then we're going to talk about how Caitlyn Jenner is quite horrible. We got Joe Manchin getting clowned on CNN. That's fun. We got Trump throwing Rudy under the bus in like the best way possible. And then let's talk about housing discrimination. Fun. I really wish I could have gotten Anna Kasparian on the show for housing discrimination, but tough to get guests, especially ones that are that important. And if you haven't seen Anna on the show, I suggest you go back and watch when I did have her on. It was a great time. It was fantastic. And so, obviously, I'd love to have her back in the show again at some point. All right. That's it. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go to the Republicans. All right. Pretty sure we know by now that the modern Republican Party is nothing more than a reactionary movement. They're a movement that really has no core ideals other than being against whatever the opposition party is in favor of. They're also the party of specifically white, rural grievance, while at the same time upholding the systems that make the rich richer and the poor poorer. So they're wholly against working people's interests, which is interesting because they call themselves the party of working class people. And yet they stand firm on the side of the donor class, more so than any other party. I mean, I had the problems with the Democrats, backing the donors a lot of the times as well. But while the Democrats may back the donors at least half the time, some of you might argue 70 to 90% of the time, the Republicans are 100% of the time with the donors, normally. Now, of course, in order to get the support of the working class, the Republican Party has to take on the mantle of the culture war, right? They're sort of the opposite of the social justice warriors, right? They're the social injustice warriors, if you want to call them that. And they are focused on cultural issues like keeping trans people keeping trans women's out of bathrooms that they feel comfortable using, or canceling tennis shoe companies because, you know, not for abhorrent labor practices, you know, like slave labor, near slave labor in China, but for saying that they support Black lives against police brutality. Okay. And so if you've been following the de-evolution of the regressive right wing, which is what they are, it's pretty obvious to see that they stand pretty much for nothing more than the obsession of owning the libs. And some Republicans are starting to be honest about that. In fact, here you have Texas Republican congressional candidate Michael Wood. So now Michael Wood is talking to an ex-Republican. That's MSNBC's Nicole Wallace. Okay. And he's going to explain what the GOP has become. And even though he had admitted that he had voted for Donald Trump.
Did you vote for Donald Trump in November?
I did.
He told more than 35,000 lies based on the Washington Post lie counter. Why did you vote for him?
Well, I think I was in a difficult spot that a whole lot of conservatives were. And in retrospect, I wonder if I wasn't too myopic and too sort of small-minded and focusing on judges or tax cuts or Israel. And maybe I should have taken a step backwards and taken more seriously what other people were saying about him, about the would-be autocrat and whatnot. I will say that after I voted for him, he immediately did everything he could to make me regret it, leading up to January 6th and including the big lie.
Well, I guess my only pushback is the big lie started well before Election Day. So I don't know if you voted early, but there was plenty of time to see where this was heading. He told his voters in North Carolina to vote not once, but twice. He's the only person that actually tried to commit systematic voter fraud of a criminal nature. He had some bizarre turns at the podium in a debate that any Republican would have been troubled by. I say that as someone who used to vote for Republicans. And then he let hundreds of thousands of people die from COVID. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, were you the best example to the voters in your district of a pure sort of protest person to Donald Trump if you voted for him yourself just a few months ago?
I don't know, but nobody else was standing up, so I ran.
That's not a good answer. That's a pretty piss poor answer. Let's be honest about that. I do actually like how Nicole Wallace, give her a little bit of credit, she is putting him on the spot. Saying, why did you vote for him? Even though, you know, he's been putting out this message of massive voter fraud, and he's been doing and saying all the things that you say that you're against. And, you know, why would you still vote for him? And it really comes down to a pretty simple thing. Despite all the negative rhetoric, they still align on policy. 100%. They still want to give tax cuts to the rich and corporations. They still want to please their donors. That's all they really do. They also believe, at least, you know, in a lot of cases, that the Democrats are some communist cabal, right? The huge lefties, like Joe Biden. That's insane. Joe Biden's not a huge lefty. It's not even close. When you really compare Democratic politicians to the rest of the world, they actually legislate pretty conservatively. A lot of programs, for example, are heavily means tested. A lot of them, of course, are paid for by, you know, tax increases, things like that. And then you also, I mean, you look at the things that they're proposing. Oh my God, $2 trillion infrastructure. Well, that's because we've let our infrastructure languish for so long that, yeah, it's going to be incredibly expensive to get us up to par. Again, remember, we live in a country where one of the major cities, Flint in Detroit, didn't have clean water for over 8 years, at least. Okay? And so understand that in the context of the rest of the world, Joe Biden's incredibly moderate and fairly conservative fiscally. That said, right, we're not getting sweeping changes like single payer, for example. We're one of the few countries that doesn't guarantee healthcare, childcare, paid sick leave, things like that. That's not to say that there aren't Democrats that are working on that. But I'm saying right now, not enough of them are in favor of these large sweeping changes. And so overall, our Overton window is pretty well skewed to the right by policies. And by the way, the policies that are supported by Donald Trump are generally the mainstream of the Republican Party. Save for a few key differences, of course. For example, trade. And for example, Donald Trump's not necessarily a neocon. Okay. And so that said, the only problem that a lot of Republicans seem to have with Donald Trump is that he went full mask off. He blew the lid off what Republicans really were like, what they actually really wanted. And turns out what's under that mask ain't pretty. So you've got Liz Cheney out there, right? And by the way, don't rehabilitate Liz Cheney. Please don't. I see it happening already. First, the rehabilitation of George W. Bush. Now the rehabilitation of Liz Cheney for actually agreeing on reality. Like you see somebody that agrees with reality, like, oh, turns out Donald Trump wasn't correct when he said that the deep state cabal of satanic worshiping Democratic pedophiles did not try to steal the election from me, or did not actually steal the election from me. Great, you're admitting the objective reality. You must be a liberal now. You know, it's ridiculous. And here's the thing. This guy and Liz Cheney are starting to push back on that, and others. But here's the thing. The base still loves Donald Trump. Over 90% approval rating. The rest of the country, however, and this explains why you've got some of the Republican establishment that continue to push back on Trumpism, it's because that roughly 2/3 of the country, the rest of America, is horrified by what we see from Trumpism. So, and it turns out that if you want a political future, you can't win if you keep going down that road. Now, of course, I'm going to get to the part where Woods, not Woods, but Mr. Wood, basically admits what the Republican Party really is.
Yeah, I heard what the former president said, and I agree with him. I think that we are just a party of grievance right now. I don't know what we stand for. We stand for owning the libs. We don't like baseball. We don't like Coke. We don't like NASCAR. We don't like Hollywood. We don't like academia. We don't like anything. We're just a grievance party that hates a good hunk of America, and then we call ourselves patriots. And this is just a dead end. We're not going to win elections that way, and we're not going to sort of put into place the sort of conservative reforms we want that way. And then, at the fringes, there's a real risk of political violence, which keeps me up at night. We saw that on January 6th, and I hate to say it, but it can get worse than that. And we have a lot of work ahead of us.
100% what he said right there. It's what I've been saying all along. They don't stand for anything. They stand for owning the libs. They are a reactionary party. So this guy is actually being refreshingly honest for a Republican, and not in like all we want to do is really just oppress black people. Oh, did I say that out loud? No, this guy is actually like, turns out my party just wants to own the libs. Yeah, not good. Can't win that way. You actually got to stand for something. But here's the thing about and the other thing that he doesn't get, that I'm going to disagree with him on. If you talk about what conservative reforms he actually wants to make, well, it's going to come down to cutting government spending, which, of course, disproportionately impacts poor people, and probably increasing defense, and, of course, outlawing abortion. So understand that that's really what he talks about when it comes to enacting actual reforms. They're going to cut taxes for corporations. They still believe in trickle down. And then again, abortion. And here's the thing about abortion. If you're a personally pro-life person, well, then you should be in favor of trying to get rid of as much poverty as possible. Okay. You need to also, in addition to fighting poverty, You also need to do actual sex education, not, indoctrination or abstinence or only or things like that. No, that doesn't work. You also need to guarantee access to birth control as well. And so that would not only, all those different things, by the way, would work kind of hand in hand. But the biggest one, of course, would be the elimination of poverty, which would also have a gigantic impact in reducing the levels of crime. But see, again, Republicans, their policies are antithetical to that because generally as an ideology, they don't believe in taking care of the poor. Conservatism at its core is a selfish ideology that doesn't really solve any of those actual problems. And so that said, at least this guy seems to admit what we've already known, what we've already figured out. And so that the current GOP has, in my words, hit the end stage. We're at end stage republicanism. Okay. And that is, of course, reactionary extremism based on nothing more than racist ideology and white grievance. So there you go. Republican in a nutshell. Okay. Moving on. Go to Caitlyn Jenner. Oh, man. Republican gubernatorial candidate for, let me just start that again. I'm sorry. I have to say the words Republican candidate Caitlyn Jenner. Do you know how difficult that is? That is hard. Okay. It's not a good thought. All right. Republican gubernatorial candidate for California, Caitlyn Jenner, recently went on Fox News with her buddy Sean Hannity to discuss why all of her rich friends are leaving California to go elsewhere. Take a look.
My friends are leaving California. Actually, we're at my hangar. The guy across right over from me, he was packing up his hangar. I said, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm moving to Sedona, Arizona. I can't take it here anymore. I can't walk down the streets and see the homeless." I don't want to leave. Okay, either I stay and fight or I get out of here.
I'm pretty sure homeless people can't stand to see Caitlyn Jenner either, but there she is. There she is. She has absolutely no class consciousness or irony. She talks about homeless people while not realizing that her and her rich friends are the reasons that there are so many homeless, displaced people in California. They drove up the cost of living to such an astronomical level, pushing people out with gentrification. And then on top of that, made sure through, lobbying politicians to not pay people enough for working. And they wonder why they keep having to see homeless people. You're the problem. Look in the mirror. You are the problem. No matter, and by the way, here's the thing about that. No matter where Caitlyn Jenner or the rest of her rich friends go, that problem is going to follow her. It will not be long until the places that these rich assholes want to congregate, unless it's some island in the middle of the ocean or like a space station like Elysium, eventually that place is going to end up being overrun with homeless people that have been priced out of their communities. That's why we actually have to solve the issues of homelessness. We have to talk about poverty. We have to talk about mental illness. We have to talk about affordable housing. Okay? But people like Jenner are out of touch elite millionaires. They only look out for themselves and members of their own class. In fact, after that interview ended, here's how she ended. Quote, "Now we're going to go find my plane around the corner. I'm going to take it for a flight." So here's the thing. Why I'm focusing on that is because if she, and it's a long shot, her becoming governor, but again, Donald Trump, Arnold Schwarzenegger, don't count anybody out at this point. she would, if she happened to win, would not invest in high-speed rail. Okay? Why build that when you could just get in your private jet and fly between San Francisco and LA like myself? Why would you ever do that? It's because not everybody has a private jet. You can't afford that. 100% out of touch. Absolutely no class consciousness whatsoever. Disconnected, typical Republican hack. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, Gavin Newsom's doing a great job. No, I'm not saying that. There's homelessness is one of those major issues that neither party really is equipped to tackle. Okay, and a lot of it is, of course, because of lobbying and the fact that big problems like homelessness require actually big solutions that end up being kind of expensive at first, but then end up, of course, paying in the end. You remember when I believe it was Utah that decided to, basically take unhoused people and put them in homes. And that actually turned out saving money in the government because you had less homeless people getting arrested, running into law enforcement, and things like that. And so, yes, housing people that are unhoused, making sure that they have opportunities, mental health care or just health care in general, that actually does help. But the problem is, again, that these politicians unfortunately see only as far as the next election goes. So for homelessness, generally it's out of sight, out of mind for many of them. I remember doing a story years ago where you had a Democrat in Hawaii, for example. Hawaii has another large homeless problem because people are not able to afford to live in Hawaii. And so there's a lot of displaced people. And you had a Democrat that was elected that would go around with a sledgehammer smashing their carts, homeless people's shopping carts, that all of their stuff was in. And so, again, you have the situation where a lot of politicians will ignore homelessness in order and really try to get it out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. I don't want to see the homeless. I don't want to admit that they exist. I don't want to actually solve the problem because it's hard, because I might actually have to make my donors pay a little bit more in taxes, or myself. And I don't want to do that. No, I'm not interested in that. No. And that's essentially the mindset. Never mind the fact that, of course, that a lot of these rich people have more money than they could ever spend in a lifetime. It doesn't matter. They've got to continue to hoard it. The dragon and the hobbit is apparently their spirit animals. So don't you dare touch their mountains of gold. Okay? Not at all. Very, very healthy mindset to have, of course, as the people suffer around you. But understand that this is who they are. That's who they are. And so, yeah. Well, one more thing, too. So now, look, Caitlyn Jenner is trans. That doesn't mean that she's immune from criticism. It's and let me just point out that it's never okay to dead name or mock a trans person for being trans. So criticize her on the merits of the things that she says and the things that she does. Do not criticize her for being trans. I just want to say that. And by the way, I don't think that she's welcomed as a member of the trans community. I think that she has turned her back on them. Even though I'm not a member of that community, I don't speak for that community, I would assume that she does not have the best interests of trans people in mind. Okay? And I say that because she's incredibly privileged. She doesn't realize the privilege that she has. She's a Republican. And so also probably doesn't realize that many trans people actually end up becoming homeless as a result of them coming out and being themselves. There are estimates, by the way, and the numbers are kind of hard to pin down. But generally, it's understood that about between 11 and 40% of trans youth end up on the streets. Furthermore, according to the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, LGBT youth are at a 120% greater risk of homelessness than heterosexual youth. Not only that, but they are more vulnerable to negative health conditions, exploitation, and human trafficking. And unfortunately, There are currently no federal programs or policies designed to meet the needs of or to protect LGBT homeless youth in the United States. And again, we're really only talking about young people here. You talk about Black trans adults, I'd imagine that the numbers are actually quite worse. And so there are some problems. Now, Caitlyn, unfortunately, does nothing about this. In fact, again, it's for them, it's out of sight, out of mind for people like her, people who are part of her, unfortunately, her social class, because her class means nothing. Or I'm sorry, it means, for me, it means nothing, but for her, it means more than anything. Any other sort of identity that she has. That's why she's able to pal around with people like Donald Trump, Sean Hannity, despite the fact that many of these people would hate her guts. And not only that, but their fans, Fox News, you go, on video, any video about trans, right? That's made by a conservative, deeply transphobic, deeply hateful, even towards people like Jenner, who continue to stand for their policies and their party. That's who she is. It's always been about the money, as it always is with them. No. Okay, you misunderstand my Hobbit comment. I'm seeing a lot of this in the chat right now. Okay, the book, the Hobbit series. The Hobbit series is where you introduce the dragon, Smaug. That's the joke. It's from the Hobbit, the dragon from the Hobbit. So, yeah. There's okay. Just say, y'all. Just say. All right. My father's trans, supportive and conservative. It took years of arguments to get him there, but at least he got there. At least he got there. I mean, and here's the thing about conservatives as well. Sometimes you'll find, more often than not, you'll find that it takes them having a trans or a gay person in their life in order to get them to be more accepting of that. Doesn't always work. It's not always the case. But generally, that's how it seems to work. They have to know somebody. It has to happen. It's almost like when you're talking about Meghan McCain and childcare, right? She finally realized, like, oh my God, childcare. It's really hard to raise kids by myself, and I'm rich. I couldn't imagine what it's like to raise children without childcare. You finally get it, but it had to happen to you first. Of course. The Hobbit is 1 book and 3 movies. True. It's okay. Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy, really good. Remember, I was the one who read the Hobbit books. Okay, I read the Hobbit books before I saw the movies. Total nerd. Okay, total nerd. You know it. All right. Smaug did invade the dwarves. Yes. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. We got Joe Manchin up next. Speaking of ghouls, we got Joe. Nerd. Yes, I know. Definitely. Okay. Senator Joe Manchin is getting called out for his insistence on so-called bipartisanship with the Republicans. Now remember, Joe Manchin is pretty much the main reason why so many Democratic policies are getting blocked. Again, we've got a 50-50 Senate. We could blow up the filibuster. He refuses to do that. And we could pass certain things through budget reconciliation. Again, that is not something that Joe Manchin and in some cases Kyrsten Sinema want to actually do. Those are two Democrats that have so far been responsible for blocking a lot of decent things from being able to go through. And so now some examples, $15 minimum wage. Kyrsten Sinema said no. She did the John McCain. And as a result, she got blasted for it. Not only that, but you have Biden's infrastructure bill, $2 trillion bill that would help rebuild some of our infrastructure, create some good paying jobs, et cetera, et cetera. You also have things like the PRO Act, which is pro-union, would help rebuild some of the labor power in our country. I think that is incredibly important for the longevity of the working class, and it would help out quite a bit. Now, Joe Manchin says, well, it's not that I'm against these things, but we need bipartisanship. We need the Republicans to work together with us. Laugh along with me. I've been saying for a long time, bipartisanship is dead. Okay. And what's left, what we have now that is called bipartisanship, whenever that happens, watch your wallet, because it's not going to be good for us. It's normally going to be something that's probably horrendous, whether it be another, increase in the defense budget, for example, or, something that's going to deregulate some of the banks who happen to be donors. So generally, when you hear the word bipartisan, watch out. It's not always bad, but it's kind of bad. Okay? And so that said, that's not to say that I don't think the two sides shouldn't be able to come together when they agree. No, it's just right now, the Republican Party is nothing but a bad actor. Okay? And so for that, I'm going to go to comments made recently by Mitch McConnell. Now, Mitch McConnell, during an appearance in Georgetown, Kentucky on Wednesday, said this, quote, 100% of my focus is on stopping this new administration. And added, I think the best way to look at what this new administration is, the president may have won the nomination, but Bernie Sanders won the argument. Oh, I wish. Oh, I wish Bernie Sanders had won both. Okay. Yes, Medicare for all. Sign me up. Green New Deal. Great. Increasing the power of labor. How about, letting workers get on the board of directors for major corporations? Let's go for worker co-ops. Let's go further, right? And now Joe Biden, of course, not that bold. Under Joe Biden, the system stays the same. Joe Biden wasn't lying when he said nothing will fundamentally change. That's what he told the donors. And that basically means that while there are going to be tweaks to the system, while there's going to be an undoing of a lot of Donald Trump's policy positions, you're going to end up having, in some of his worst decisions, by the way, you're going to have a return to what it basically was beforehand. What's problematic about that is that a lot of what happened beforehand kind of led to the rise of Donald Trump. And so that's a problem, okay? That said, is his infrastructure plan good? Yeah, it's good. It will fix roads and bridges. We desperately need that to happen. It's going to create some jobs. That's wonderful. Good paying jobs, for example. The PRO Act will help rebuild some of our labor. And so I'm not saying the stuff that Joe Biden is doing is bad. No, I think generally it's pretty good stuff. I just don't think it's sufficient to fix the systemic problems. But again, Joe Biden didn't run on systemic change. We're not going to seize the means of production. That's not going to happen. That said, Republicans They act like we're heading to communism. Like straight, they're like, pipeline to communism, Joe Biden. No, ridiculous. And so what they're doing is that they're, citing ridiculous stuff like the budget. We got a budget deficit. Oh my God. Who do we actually owe with that budget deficit? Who do we owe? Basically ourselves at this point. We hardly borrow. We really don't even borrow that much money from other countries, from China. And it's not like, hey, China, give us some money. It's China or other countries investing in bonds and basically saying, okay, we're going to buy some bonds and you're going to pay us back with interest. It's kind of how it works. But again, money's pretty much kind of a made up fictitious thing. We can kind of print it out of nowhere. Stephanie Kelton's got some great ideas on it. Basically, MMT kind of shows you how it really works. And when you look at all that stuff, you realize money's kind of fake. And the debt's kind of been used as an excuse to not do any of these big, bold things. We've got national debt. So that's why we can't do free college and anything like that. We can't invest in our own people, even though that we are the reserve currency for the entire world at this point. And that's a very incredibly powerful position to be into. Okay. That said, Republicans, it's not surprising that, Republicans are promising to block everything. That's exactly what happened under President Barack Obama. Why would you think the Republicans would act any differently? Even under Biden, which again, when you go back to Obama, Obama's like, I'm going to reach across the aisle. I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to try to get Republicans as part of this. Oh, you don't like the public option. I guess I'll go to Obamacare. I'll take Mitt Romney's idea for healthcare, and we'll do Romney care across the country. Maybe that'll get some Republican votes. Nope. They got nothing. They've got nothing. So again, why would you believe that Republicans would act any differently under Biden? Well, Joe Manchin was asked that. He was recently on a segment with Chris Cuomo, and they got in a little bit of a tussle. Chris Cuomo actually bringing up some pretty good points. Let's watch.
Look what we've done, $1.9 trillion. Look what we did last year in all bipartisan way. Look what we've done this year. We didn't do it with a bipartisan way, but we did it because it needed to be done with the pandemic that we had. We did it at $1.9 trillion.
But you didn't do it bipartisan.
Input from no, we had a process of bipartisanship to a certain extent.
But then there were no
votes. There would have been more, but there wasn't. But there was one. Well, we never. We didn't try. We had some votes as far as in the
but they went through the reconciliation process, Senator, as you know. You went through reconciliation because they weren't going to work with you on it. McConnell had it locked down.
But then basically, then we did the hate crimes bill, and we went through a process where we had amendments on the floor. Joe Biden has got more done in 100 days.
But not with them.
Any president in my time that I can recall.
Not with them.
Basically, he got more done. He's put a plan out there, and he got more done.
But not with them.
We got it done, okay? And
but
we're
not
moving
with
in the right
them.
direction.
Not with them.
But you've heard Joe Biden. He wants it to work. It will work.
But they don't want it to work. He just told you, I'm stopping the administration. He just said it to you,
You don't know. You don't.
He just said it.
That was one person.
He's the head.
That's one person.
He's the leader.
He's not controlling all of that. I can assure you, we would not be having the discussions. There wouldn't be an offer on the table of $500 or $600 billion of infrastructure. A starting point, which I think is a good starting point. Let's look at what we've done.
Everything that the Democrats have been able to do is without any Republican votes. How much more clear does it have to be? Republicans don't want to work with you. As simple as that. They don't want to work with you. They block efforts to get anything done. They just do. And by helping to block that efforts in the case of, bipartisanship. I'm going to work with the Republicans. I'm going to work with the Republicans. We're going to do this bipartisan. By doing that, you are essentially giving Republicans cover. That's what Joe Manchin's all about. And not only that, but hurting Democratic chances of actually retaining power. And as a result of that, hurting the country. But this isn't, look, it all for some, like, they're bending at the altar, bowing at the altar of bipartisanship. This isn't 1992, dude. Okay? No, the Republican Party is all about owning the libs. That's it. That's it. That's the ideology. There's a Republican that admits it. Like, we don't have an ideology anymore. We're all about owning the libs. We don't actually have policy that we're pushing. Yes. Either Joe Manchin is deeply ignorant of the political reality, which I find is laughable, or he's more likely paid by the donors to run cover for Republicans. That's it. That's it. I think we all know what the reality is. Okay. All right, moving on. Now that Rudy Giuliani is under investigation for allegedly violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, he's going to need some legal defense. Now, you might be wondering, well, why does Rudy Giuliani need legal defense? He's a lawyer. He's generally a pretty well-known lawyer. Well, I would tend to think, in my limited experience anyway with the law, that it's maybe not a good idea to represent yourself in criminal court, especially when most of the time you're 3 sheets to the wind and accidentally butt dialing your secrets to reporters. Just saying. But what do I know? I'm just a simple talk show host. Now the problem with, of course, getting a legal defense is that it turns out it costs so much darn money. Yeah, if only Rudy Giuliani had a friend in high places that could loan him maybe a few million for the defense. Maybe. Yeah. Well, maybe somebody whose name rhymes with a dump. Could you think of anybody? No, right. Maybe the former client, ex-president. Yeah. Turns out the person in question, of course, that I'm talking about is not exactly rushing to jump into Rudy Giuliani's defense. In fact, according to New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman, Trump said that he believes that it's not his, quote, call to go help his longtime friend or ally and personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, with his legal expenses now that he's under investigation. Apparently, Giuliani's allies have been quite frustrated with the former president's lack of help for his so-called friend. It also follows, of course, Trump's refusal to pay legal expenses he owes for Giuliani for his unsuccessful attempts to try to overturn the 2020 presidential election, which was never going to happen. And all Rudy Giuliani was doing was just taking $20,000 to fart in court and make ridiculous arguments. I mean, that's pretty much it. We all know how that went. Didn't go well. So now, to go along with this, I got a tweet here from CNN reporter Gabby Orr saying, and this is quoting Andrew Giuliani, quote, "The nut may crack in the next 36 hours. Trump could be the hero by jumping in to help Rudy with his mounting legal costs." Now, that's important because the nut might crack. Well, who's the nut here? Well, obviously, Giuliani. And basically, that's signaling to Trump world, hey, you might want to jump in, or else he's going to talk. He's going to talk. Well, I mean, it can't be any more clear than that. Okay, at least in my opinion. Now, Haberman adds, if this was just a simple issue of Trump not realizing Giuliani was in trouble, as some Giuliani allies believe, then this would have been dealt with days ago. So, he's hurting. Trump knows he's hurting. And he's like, hey, man, wish I could help. not my call. I mean, it really does show you that Trump has abandoned his so-called friend. Now, maybe that's because of reports that Giuliani was going to flip on Trump, or maybe just the fact that Donald Trump doesn't give a shit. I mean, after all, why should he help Rudy Giuliani when Rudy failed to keep Trump in office? I mean, it's that failure. And if you're no longer useful to the former president, if you're no longer useful to Donald Trump, then he doesn't give a damn about you. I'm not going to pay this sad loser baby 1 cent. I don't really have that money because I don't have that much money. I'm actually not rich. But I'm not going to pay for Rudy Giuliani either because he's a loser. Sad. Why can't he? If it's not Donald Trump's call, by the way, whose call is it? It's kind of a ridiculous argument. It's a weird message and completely unhelpful to Rudy Giuliani, to which I say to Rudy, welcome to the underside of the bus with the rest of Donald Trump's friends. Sad baby. Okay. Anyway. Fun times. So let's get to not fun times. Serious issue. We have some housing discrimination in the Black community. Just awful, awful stuff. All right. An Indianapolis woman is alleging housing discrimination. Apparently, her home was severely undervalued as a result of her being Black. So now the woman in question is Carlette Duffy, and she recently filed a housing discrimination complaint in Indianapolis, after getting a series of appraisals as she was working to refinance her home, which is located in a historically Black neighborhood just outside of downtown. So she did the appraisal to get it, because right now, understand that there's incredibly low interest rates. So it's really good for somebody who wants to refinance their home and get a lower payment and less interest before those interest rates start going up. So now she's in the process of doing that, and the appraisal came back a lot lower. How much lower? Double. Her home was twice valued below her 2017 purchase price. So if she were to refinance, she would actually get a lot less back as a result. So now that's curious. Now you could say, oh, look, how housing market has changed. We've had a pandemic and we've had financial disruption and whatever else they could theoretically say with lower property values. I don't see how. Even with the pandemic, the price of housing has actually gone up as a result. And so more people, of course, were looking to work from home, or were looking to move into a permanent housing and things like that. And so, that's not a situation where you have, a reason for appraisals to come back that much lower. So now she tried to challenge this and say, wait a minute. My house didn't get worse in 2 years. No, we've been taking care of our home and all that stuff. Why is it so much lower? Well, they came back and said, well, I don't know. It's just lower. That's why. So I'm sorry, but we're not going to change it. You're not going to get what the same rate, the same price as we, as the original appraisal back in 2017, because you've lived in it. Now, instead of taking the obviously terrible deal, she decided to look into it. And she ended up reading a New York Times article about housing, discrimination. So when she read that, she decided to apply some of the lessons. Here's what she said to WXIN-TV. Quote, I decided to do exactly what was done in the article. I took down every photo of my family from the house. I took every piece of ethnic artwork out. So any African artwork I took out, I displayed my degrees, I removed certain books. Duffy then asked a white male friend to sit in during the appraisal and did not declare her race in the application or any other communications with the appraisal company. So basically, it's a white family and a white home. Okay. Now, of course, it had to have come back the same, right? I mean, we're in a post-racial country. Racism doesn't exist anymore. We had a black president. We did it. We beat the racisms. Unfortunately, no, that's not the case. The appraisal actually came back more than double the first two, valuing her home at more than $100,000 higher. So, and here's the thing. We're not talking about a poor neighborhood, obviously, or we're not talking about somebody who doesn't take care of their home. We're not talking about any of that. This is pure racism, and that's it. I mean, obviously, for the mind, in the mind of the appraiser, black people lived here, so obviously it's got to be worth less. Well, that's insane. Following this, Duffy and the Fair Housing Center for Central Indiana had asked the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to investigate these discrepancies. Now, they found that what the appraiser did pulled comparable sales from black neighborhoods more than a mile away in a different neighborhood, rather than those closer to her home around the area, like on her street, which is what they should be doing. They should be pulling it from her community, her neighborhood. Instead, they're like, no, we're going to go to the other neighborhood that's worth less. Why? Because of the system. It's systemic racism. According to the Washington Post, decades of research have revealed bias in mortgage lending, including redlining. Undercover investigations have also exposed pervasive discrimination by some real estate brokers, with agents being accused of steering black home buyers away from white areas or denying them basic information to make a home purchase easier. So in the case of appraisals, they'll go and, again, pull home prices from lower valued areas, black communities, even if the house isn't located in those communities, and use that to give appraisal values that are lower to black families. So that's incredibly messed up. Even though, again, there are technically supposed to be rules against that, it appears that there are too many people that do not follow those rules. Now, there are states that are trying to crack down, that are trying to make changes, that are trying to make changes in the industry. But still, it's not enough. So right now, until that gets fixed, black homeowners, beware. If you think that if you're a black homeowner and you think your appraisal value is too low, chances are you're probably right, and you need to get a second opinion. You need to get a second look. Do not settle for less than you think your home is worth. Okay? And unfortunately, right now, that's the only tool that I can see available, other than trying to continue to wait for the system to get fixed. Now, of course, I think that part of being able to get that system fixed is to make sure that this issue is well known and prevalent. You've got to, you got to let people know that this is happening. And so that's why this story is important. That's why the New York Times article is important. That's why generally, because most people understand that we don't know that this happens. A lot of white people are unaware. We're like, wait a minute, your appraisals are coming back lower for no reason because you're black? That's insane. That's ridiculous. How is this possible? How is this possible? Well, it is. And more people need to know about it and to create such outrage that things do change. It's insane that she had to go through and pretend that her family was a white family just to be able to get the value of their house that they deserve. Now, here's what Duffy said about this. And she's right to be angry. I get choked up even thinking about it now because I was so excited and so happy, and then I was so angry that I had to go through all of that just to be treated fairly. And again, we should all be angry. Because understand, this is the bias in the system. This is why we should all be angry about this. We should be angry that this happens and continues to happen, and should also make us realize that we've got a long way to go, culturally, systemically, to actually try to achieve true equity and to free our country from the legacy of slavery and from Jim Crow, because we're not free until everyone is. Okay. The rule of real estate: location, 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 location of blacks, location of money. It's the rules of the USA. Well, it's funny because I don't know if you're familiar with Black Wall Street and how it was an incredibly successful, area. Black businesses generating lots of wealth, very, very, middle class, high middle class area, and ended up being absolutely obliterated by racists. So I believe that was in Tulsa. That's what happens when, unfortunately, when black people get too successful in this country. A bunch of racist people go to burn it down. Hopefully that doesn't, that won't happen anymore. But again, we've got a long ways to go until we can get to that point where we can actually have, remove those systems of oppression and actually allow black people to be equal again and to have that equal opportunity. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, definitely look more into Black Wall Street. It's infuriating. Infuriating. All right. That's it. That's all I got today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I appreciate very much if you do that. I appreciate your viewership, of course. Do I have any? I do have a super chat. Here, Aragon, they're dwarves, not hobbits. Aragon. Yes, I know the difference between dwarves and hobbits. By the way, I'm just saying. All right. There's that. Oh, hey, John's Venn diagram designer. Thank you for the 7 months, 7-month subscription, tier 1. Much appreciated. All right. I will not be here tomorrow. I am going to get my second Pfizer shot, and then I have a work-related meeting as well. So, I believe I have a work-related meeting, so I need to get to. So we will see you back here on Monday. I should be feeling much better, hopefully. Hopefully I don't get wrecked too hard by that vaccine. I should be fine. Absolutely fine. Oh, hey, thank you for the sub, Emo Dragon. Much appreciated. I don't know if I'm going to be out on Monday and Tuesday. We'll see. We'll see how it works. I'm only expecting like a day or two of feeling kind of crappy, and then we'll be back. So, all right. Anyway, I love you all. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay sane. And we'll see you all later. And remember, change begins with you. Night, Nation.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass keyword.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Like that.
There's insanity in the control room.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.